The battlefield was silent, except for the distant crackle of burning wreckage. Smoke curled into the air, mixing with the dusty wind that swept across the scarred ground. Bodies lay scattered among the debris, both human and alien. The war had been brutal, and it was not over yet. Somewhere beyond the hills, the enemy was regrouping. Sergeant Daniel Cross moved carefully, his boots crunching on the charred soil. His armor was scratched, scorched, and heavy with dust, but his mind was still sharp. He scanned the area, looking for survivors. His orders were clear: fall back to the extraction point. But his gut told him to keep searching. Something about the silence felt wrong. A faint sound reached him, a low, pained gasp. He turned his head sharply. Through the haze, he saw movement near a pile of collapsed steel beams. Instinct made him grip his rifle, but when he moved closer, he saw it wasn't an enemy soldier ready to strike. It was a woman, not human. Her skin was a deep shade of green, streaked with grime and blood. Her silver hair hung in loose, tangled waves, and her armor was unlike anything he had ever seen: sleek, black, and covered with glowing runes that flickered weakly. She lay on the ground, her breathing shallow, her eyes half closed, and her legs, one was gone below the knee, replaced by a damaged alien prosthetic sparking with faint blue light. The other was burned so badly he could see the wound pulsing. With every heartbeat, Daniel's first instinct was to walk away. She was clearly an enemy warrior. He had fought against her kind for months, seeing what they could do. But as he looked at her face, twisted with pain and desperation, something stopped him. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding onto life. Her eyes opened slowly, locking onto his. They were a piercing shade of gold, filled with a mix of defiance and fear. Her lips moved, her voice hoarse and barely audible. "Leave me." Daniel knelt beside her, ignoring her words. "You're hurt, badly. You won't make it if I leave." She tried to push him away, but her strength was gone. "Your kind does not save ours." He glanced at her wounds again. "Maybe not, but I'm not like the others." He reached into his pack and pulled out a field med scanner. Her hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. Even weak, her grip was strong. "If my people find us together, they will kill you." He gave a small, humorless smile. "If your people find us, I'll deal with it. Right now I'm dealing with this." He gently scanned her leg, the device beeping in warning. "Severe damage. Infection risk high." She stared at him as if trying to understand why he was helping. "Why?" "Because I don't leave people to die." For a moment, she said nothing. Then her head fell back, her eyes fluttering shut. He worked quickly, spraying antiseptic foam over the burns, sealing the wound with biogel, and stabilizing the damaged prosthetic. Distant gunfire echoed through the hills and Daniel's crackled to life. "Sergeant Cross, report. Extraction window closing." He looked at the unconscious alien warrior. His choices were clear. Leave her and make it out alive, or carry her and risk not making it at all. He sighed, tightening the straps of his pack. "Guess we're both going to make it," he muttered. Lifting her onto his back, he rose to his feet. She was lighter than he expected, but every step on the uneven ground was a struggle. As he moved toward the extraction zone, he felt her stir faintly, her fingers curling into the fabric of his armor. She was still alive, and for some reason, that mattered to him more than the orders in his ear. The smoke grew thicker, and the sound of engines rumbled somewhere above. Daniel kept going, one step after another, determined not to let go. He didn't know her name. He didn't know if she would live long enough to tell him. But he knew one thing: he wasn't going to leave her behind. Daniel moved as fast as the uneven ground allowed, his breath steady, but his muscles burning. The alien warrior on his back groaned softly, her voice a mix of pain and confusion. He glanced over his shoulder, but her eyes were closed again. She was fading. The cum in his ear crackled once more. Cross, you've got less than 10 minutes. If you're not at the extraction point, we leave without you." He ignored the voice. His focus was on the small rise ahead, where he could get a better view of the terrain. The battlefield stretched endlessly, broken by craters, scorched earth, and shattered machines. Somewhere beyond the smoke, his team was waiting. But they didn't know he was bringing company. As he climbed the rise, he heard distant shouting alien voices. He froze, dropping to one knee, scanning the area. Through the haze, 3 figures emerged, wearing armor similar to the woman he carried. They were heavily armed and moving fast. Daniel ducked behind a broken wall, heart pounding. If they saw him, they would open fire, and if they saw her with him, there would be no talking his way out. He looked down at her face. Even unconscious, her features were sharp and regal, the kind that spoke of status among her people. She wasn't just a soldier, she was someone important. That explained why the other warriors were here searching for her. Her breathing hitched, and her eyes fluttered open for a moment. "Put me down," she whispered. "Not happening," he replied quietly. "They will kill you. They'll have to catch me first." He shifted her weight on his back and scanned the ground ahead. A collapsed transport lay half buried. In the dirt about 50 meters away, it could provide cover. But getting there meant crossing open ground. The alien search party was getting closer. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle and sprinted. The wind whipped past, carrying the acrid smell of smoke and burning metal. His boots slammed into the dirt, each step a risk. A shout rang out behind him. They had spotted him, plasma fire lit up the air, searing the ground where he had been moments before. Daniel dove behind the wreckage, pulling the woman off his back and setting her gently against the metal hull. "Stay down," he ordered. She met his eyes, her voice low but steady. "You fight for an enemy." He gave her a tight smile. "Right now, I fight for someone who needs me." Before she could respond, the first alien soldier rounded the wreckage. Daniel's rifle barked, the shot hitting the attacker square in the chest. Another followed, and Daniel ducked back, returning fire in short, precise bursts. The woman tried to rise, but her damaged leg and missing prosthetic made her collapse back against the wreckage. Still, her eyes followed every movement, her expression unreadable. When the third soldier came into view, Daniel rolled out from cover, firing before the alien could aim. The shot echoed, and then there was silence except for the faint crackle of flames nearby. Daniel checked the perimeter. No more movement. He returned to her side, kneeling down. "You still with me?" Her gaze softened slightly, though her tone was still guarded. "You could have run. You stayed," he shrugged. "Told you, I don't leave people behind." Faint smile tugged at her lips before she looked away. "My name is Kaera." "Daniel," he replied. "Now let's get you out of here." Lifting her again, he started toward the extraction zone. The sound of approaching gunships cut through the air, and for the first time that day, Daniel allowed himself a small glimmer of hope. The roar of the gunships grew louder, echoing through the haze. Daniel tightened his grip on Kaera, each step carrying them closer to the extraction zone. The dust swirled around them, stinging his eyes, but he didn't slow down. Kaera shifted on his back, her voice weak but clear. "Your people, they will not take me." Daniel didn't answer right away. He knew she was right. If command saw her, they would see a threat, not a survivor. "Then we don't tell them," he said finally. Her head lifted slightly. "You would lie for me. Let's just call it." "Not giving them the full story," he replied. They reached the ridge overlooking the landing site. Below, a human dropship waited, engines humming. 2 Marines stood guard near the ramp, scanning the perimeter. Daniel crouched behind a jagged rock, setting Kaera down gently. "You stay here," he told her. "I'll get them to open the ramp, then I'll bring you in." Her golden eyes locked on his. "And if they refuse, then we find another way." He left her there and moved toward the ship, waving to the guards. "Cross, where the hell have you been?" One of them called out. "Ran into some trouble," Daniel said. "Need med supplies. Got an injured civilian." The guard frowned. "Civilian? Out here?" "Long story," Daniel replied, forcing a tired smile. "Just get the med kit ready." As they turned to grab it, Daniel slipped back to Kaera. "We have to move fast. They're suspicious." She leaned on him as they made their way toward the ramp. But halfway there, the guards caught sight of her. Their weapons rose instantly. "Cross! That's no civilian. That's an enemy combatant." Daniel stepped between them and Kaera, his rifle hanging loose but his stance unyielding. "She's wounded. She's coming with us." One guard shook his head. "Orders are clear. No enemy survivors. Step aside." Kaera's fingers tightened on his shoulder. She didn't speak, but he could feel the tension in her body. Daniel's jaw clenched. "If you want her gone, you'll have to go through me." For a long moment, no one moved. The sound of the ship's engines filled the tense silence. Then the second guard lowered his weapon slightly. "You've lost it, Cross. Get her on board, but Command's gonna have questions." Daniel nodded, helping Kaera up the ramp. Inside the dropship, she sank into one of the seats, breathing heavily. She looked at him with something between gratitude and disbelief. "You risked everything." He sat across from her, strapping in as the ship lifted off. "I told you, I don't leave people behind." As the dropship rose above the battlefield, Kaera's gaze stayed on him, her expression unreadable. For the first time since they met, she didn't argue, didn't question. She just watched him, as if trying to understand why a human would do what he had just done. The dropship shook as it cut through the thick clouds. Inside, the smell of scorched metal and burned fuel lingered. Daniel kept glancing at Kaera. Her breathing was uneven, and sweat beaded on her forehead. "You're bleeding again," he said, leaning forward. The biogel seal on her burned leg had split during the run. The damaged prosthetic on the other side sparked faintly, each flicker making her flinch. One of the Marines across the cabin noticed. "Cross, she's not gonna make it. Why are we wasting space on her?" Daniel's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "She's alive, and that's all that matters right now." The Marine shook his head but said nothing more. Daniel knelt beside Kaera, checking her wound. She tried to push his hands away. "No, not in front of them. They'll think you're weak?" he asked. Her golden eyes locked on his. "They'll see I'm dying," he didn't reply. Instead, he pulled out his med pack and worked quickly, resealing the wound and stabilizing the prosthetic with a brace. Her breathing slowed, but he could feel the heat radiating from her skin. "Fever," the pilot's voice came through the cabin speakers. 15 minutes to base. Command wants a full report when we land." Daniel's stomach tightened. Command would take her the moment they landed. They'd interrogate her, maybe worse. He couldn't let that happen. Kaera must have seen the change in his face. "Your leaders will kill me," she said quietly. "Not if I get to you first," he replied. She studied him for a long moment, then said something that caught him off guard. "You're a soldier. Soldiers follow orders. Why do you break yours?" Daniel tightened the brace on her leg before answering. "Because sometimes the right thing isn't in the orders." The ship jolted suddenly, throwing everyone forward. Warning lights flashed red. The pilot's voice shouted, "We've got incoming. Enemy interceptors, 3 of them." Kaera gripped the edge of her seat. "They're here for me." Daniel grabbed his rifle, checking the charge. "Then we'd better make sure they don't get you." The sound of gunfire rattled through the hull. The Marines moved to the side hatches, returning fire into the swirling clouds. Daniel stayed near Kaera, his body between her and the walls shaking with impacts. Another burst of plasma slammed into the ship, making it dip sharply. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Kaera's eyes never left him. If we go down, leave me." He gave her a look that was half a glare, half a smile. "Not happening." The ship banked hard, engines roaring. Through the small viewport, Daniel saw one of the interceptors explode into a ball of fire. But the other two were still closing in. The pilot's voice was strained. "Hold on, this is gonna be rough." Daniel gripped the safety bar above Kaera's seat, bracing himself. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing: he wasn't letting her out of his sight. The dropship shook violently, alarms screaming. Daniel's grip tightened on the bar above Kaera's seat as the floor tilted under them. The pilot's voice came through the com, strained and loud. "We've lost stabilizers. Brace for impact." The world blurred in a rush of noise and light. Daniel threw his arm across Kaera, holding her in place as the ship slammed into the ground. Metal screamed and tore as the hull slid across rocky terrain, sparks spraying like fireflies in the dark. When the ship finally stopped, the cabin was filled with smoke and groans of the wounded. Daniel's ears rang, but he forced himself to focus. "Kaera, you with me?" Her golden eyes opened slowly. She coughed, nodding, "Still here." He helped her unstrap and checked her injuries. Her leg brace had held, but the impact had torn open a gash on her side. Blood was already soaking through her armor. One of the Marines limped toward them, shouting through the smoke. "Enemy troops incoming. They'll be here in minutes." Daniel's mind raced. The wreck was too damaged to hold, and Kaera couldn't run. They needed cover fast. He looked around the crash site and spotted a narrow ridge with jagged rocks that could hide them from view. "We're moving," he said, lifting her onto his back again. Kaera's voice was weak but urgent. "Daniel, if they find us, they won't just kill you. They'll make it slow." "Guess we'd better make sure they don't find us," he said. Already moving, the smoke from the wreckage was thick, curling into the sky. It would draw enemy scouts right to them. Behind him, the Marines were setting up defensive fire, but he knew they wouldn't last long against a full squad. He climbed the ridge, each step heavy with Kaera's weight and the ache in his muscles. Plasma fire cracked in the distance, followed by the screams of soldiers on both sides. When they reached the top, Daniel found a shallow cave just big enough for the two of them. He set her down gently against the wall. "Stay here. I'll be back." Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist. "No, you stay. If you go, I won't see you again." Daniel looked at her for a moment. Her eyes weren't just fierce anymore, they were afraid. He sat down beside her, checking his rifle. "Fine. We hold here together." The sound of boots crunching on stone reached them. Shadows moved just outside the cave. Daniel steadied his breathing, finger resting on the trigger. Kaera reached for the small blade at her side, her grip steady despite the pain. The first enemy soldier stepped into view, scanning the ridge. Daniel didn't fire, not yet. He waited until the soldier was close enough to see Kaera, and in that moment, he acted. One silent shot dropped the soldier where he stood. But more voices shouted nearby, and the sound of weapons charging filled the air. Kaera leaned toward him, her voice a whisper. "This is where we die." Daniel glanced at her, his jaw set. "Not today." He moved to the cave's entrance, ready to meet whatever came through next. The crunch of boots outside grew louder. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle. Kaera shifted beside him, her blade steady in her hand despite the pain running through her body. The first enemy soldier appeared at the cave's mouth, his weapon rising. Daniel fired once, dropping him instantly. But more shapes moved in the smoke. They were surrounding the ridge. Daniel glanced at Kaera. "When I say run, you move. Don't look back." Her golden eyes locked on his. "I cannot run. And I will not leave you." The shadows closed in. Plasma fire ripped into the rock around them, filling the air with heat and dust. Daniel returned fire, each shot precise, each second bought with risk. He felt a sting in his arm, a glancing hit, but he ignored it. Kaera pushed herself forward, throwing her blade with sudden force. It struck one of the soldiers in the throat, dropping him before he could fire. She leaned back, breathing hard, but there was pride in her eyes. The fight became chaos. Daniel moved like a wall between her and the attackers, switching from rifle to sidearm when his main weapon overheated. One enemy broke through, lunging toward Kaera, but Daniel caught him mid-step, driving him back with a burst of fire. Then the sound came, a deep, thrumming roar from above. A human gunship dropped out of the clouds, its cannons tearing into the enemy squad. Soldiers scattered, and those who didn't fall fled into the smoke. Daniel pulled Kaera to her feet, supporting her as the gunship's ramp lowered. Two human medics rushed forward, their eyes widening when they saw her. One started. "She's with me," Daniel cut in sharply. "She's under my protection." The medics hesitated, then nodded, helping them aboard. Inside, Kaera sank into a seat, her hand still gripping his dot as the gunship lifted off. She looked at him for a long time. "You saved me more than once. My people will never understand this." He gave a faint smile. "Then make them understand." She tilted her head. "And you, what will your people say?" Daniel glanced at the human soldiers watching them. From across the cabin, "They'll say I broke orders." "I can live with that." Her lips curved in the faintest of smiles. "Then you are not like the others." He squeezed her hand once before leaning back, exhaustion finally catching up to him. The war wasn't over. But for now, they were both alive. And that was enough. The gunship banked toward the horizon, the battlefield shrinking behind them. Somewhere ahead lay questions, danger, and consequences. But Daniel knew one thing: he would face them all the same way he faced this day, by refusing to walk away.